A group of racist bikers walking into a restaurant carries with it an energy of intimidation and arrogance. They are loud, overbearing, and driven by the belief that their presence alone can dominate a space. When they spot a young kid vulnerable in their eyes, they see an easy target to mock and belittle. The child represents everything they believe they can crush: innocence, difference, and quiet strength. What they do not realize is that beneath that quiet exterior lies a strength and intelligence they cannot overpower. This encounter becomes more than just a clash inside a restaurant. It transforms into a powerful lesson on respect, humility, and the consequences of prejudice. The bikers initially laugh at the child, making crude comments, expecting that fear will rule the situation. This is often how bullies operate. They feed on the silence of others, mistaking it for weakness. Yet the kid does not shrink away or hide. Instead, he remains composed, his confidence unsettling to the bikers who expect submission. The stillness in his demeanor is the first sign that this encounter will not unfold the way they imagined. Strength is not always loud, for sometimes it speaks through calmness, patience, and clarity of mind. As the bikers push further, perhaps mocking his background, his clothes, or even his presence in that space, the child responds not with anger but with sharpness. Words, when used with intelligence, can cut deeper than fists. His ability to stand up for himself surprises not only the bikers but also the other diners who watch in silence. What shocks them most is that this kid refuses to be broken by their intimidation. Instead, he turns the spotlight on their ignorance, exposing them in front of everyone. In a moment, the bullies become the ones who look foolish. The lesson deepens when the bikers realize the kid is not ordinary. Maybe he is skilled, maybe he has knowledge, or maybe he simply embodies a resilience they cannot shake. In challenging him, they end up revealing their own weakness, the emptiness of their prejudice. The kid doesn't need to shout, fight, or stoop to their level. His strength lies in his ability to stand firm, proving that courage has nothing to do with size, age, or appearance. The power of dignity and self-respect shines brighter than brute force. This moment teaches the bikers that every action has consequences. Their attempt to humiliate a child becomes a mirror reflecting their own failures. The restaurant, once filled with their noise, now witnesses their silence. People who may have been afraid to speak up against them before now see their vulnerability. The kid, through his composure and wisdom, not only defends himself, but also empowers others to recognize that bullies are never as strong as they pretend to be. The story is a reminder that racism and prejudice are built on false assumptions. The bikers assumed their dominance would be unquestioned, but they discovered that true strength lies in character, not appearance. The child's lesson to them is one they will not forget, for a wound not on their bodies but on their pride. For the billionaire, millionaire, or biker, the lesson remains the same: never underestimate someone because of who you think they are. Greatness often comes from those dismissed, and humility is learned only when arrogance is broken. Prejudice and arrogance have a way of clouding judgment, making people blind to the truth that is right in front of them. In the story of the racist bikers, their arrogance stemmed from a false sense of superiority. Built on skin color, appearance, and intimidation, they walked into the restaurant already carrying their prejudices like weapons, assuming that their size, for noise and presence would make them untouchable. When they spotted the kid, their minds quickly painted a picture of weakness. To them, he was just another child, an easy target who would either remain silent or shrink in fear. This assumption was not based on reality, but on the narrow lens of arrogance and racism, and it set them up for a shocking lesson. Prejudice blinds people because it reduces others to stereotypes rather than seeing them as individuals. The bikers did not stop to wonder about the kid's story, his abilities, or his resilience. They were trapped in the illusion that power comes from loudness and that dominance can be proven by mocking or belittling someone smaller. Their arrogance prevented them from realizing that strength is not measured by muscles or numbers, but by character, confidence, and intelligence. By the time they discovered the truth, it was too late because the kid had already turned the tables on them. Arrogance often goes hand in hand with ignorance. The bikers' prejudice made them underestimate the kid, and their arrogance made them blind to the signals of his composure. Instead of recognizing the quiet strength in his posture, the calmness in his eyes, or the confidence in his silence. They misread it as weakness. This miscalculation happens frequently in life when people allow arrogance to guide their actions. They mistake stillness for fear, humility for weakness, and kindness for submission. But the truth is often the opposite. The kid's silence was not fear, it was preparation. His calmness was not surrender, it was control. This blindness caused by arrogance is dangerous because it leads people into situations they are not ready for. The bikers thought they were in control of the situation, but in reality, they had already lost the moment they chose to underestimate their opponent. Instead of dominating the restaurant with their presence, they became the center of ridicule when the kid revealed his strength. This was not just about physical confrontation or even words. It was about the kid's ability to remain steady under pressure while the bikers exposed their own insecurity through loudness and mockery. The lesson here is profound prejudice does not define the person being targeted. It defines the person carrying it. The bikers revealed more about themselves than they did about the kid. Their assumptions showed their ignorance, their arrogance showed their insecurity, and their racism showed their weakness. The kid, on the other hand, revealed dignity, self-control, and strength. This contrast turned the entire situation upside down, leaving the bikers humiliated and the kid victorious without even needing to prove anything more than his unshakable presence. When people operate through arrogance, they are often blindsided by reality. The bikers believed they were in a position of power because of numbers and intimidation, but they were powerless against intelligence, courage, and inner strength. The kid taught them that prejudice only limits the one who holds it. By judging him unfairly, they underestimated him and walked straight into their own downfall. Their blindness to the truth cost them their pride and left them with a lesson they would regret for a long time. This story reminds us that arrogance and prejudice are not signs of strength, but of weakness. They blind people to potential talent and greatness in others. The bikers thought they saw a weak child, but what they were really looking at was resilience, brilliance, and quiet strength. Their mistake was assuming they already knew his worth, when in reality, they knew nothing. True strength is often misunderstood because many people associate it with noise, aggression, or physical power. In the case of the kid in the restaurant, his strength was not about size or dominance, but about composure, intelligence, and inner confidence. For the racist bikers believed that by being loud, intimidating, and physically imposing, they were showing strength. Yet what they revealed was insecurity. You said, explain point 2600 word without heading, and ChatGPT said, true strength is not always loud, forceful, or physical. Many people mistake strength for aggression, thinking that raising voices, displaying muscles, or showing anger proves dominance. In reality, true strength is measured by self-control, intelligence, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. The kid in the restaurant displayed exactly this kind of quiet strength when confronted by the racist bikers. While they stormed in with arrogance, making noise and throwing around their prejudice like a weapon, he remained composed. His silence and calmness became more powerful than their shouting, because it revealed that he was not shaken by their intimidation. Strength expressed through calmness unsettles bullies because it denies them the reaction they expect. The bikers assumed the kid would shrink, cry, or run away, but instead he held his ground. Without raising his voice, without trying to fight back physically, for he made a statement that was stronger than any outburst. He was unafraid. This kind of inner strength is difficult for arrogant people to understand because their entire sense of power is based on control and fear. When their intimidation fails, their so-called power collapses. The kid's composure showed that his strength was real, built not on appearance, but on character. True strength is also about intelligence, the ability to know when to respond and how to respond. The kid chose not to mirror the biker's aggression, but to use his presence, his words, or even his silence as tools to reveal their weakness. This shows a mastery of self that many adults struggle to achieve. Where others would have exploded in anger or fear, he chose discipline. His control of the situation came not from overpowering the bikers, but from refusing to give them control over him. In that moment, the kid became the one in charge, not because he was stronger physically, but because he was stronger mentally. Calm strength carries a dignity that cannot be faked. The biker's loudness only highlighted their insecurity, while the boy's calmness highlighted his confidence. He showed that strength is not about proving oneself to others, but about knowing who you are. A person secure in their identity does not need to scream or fight to earn respect. Their composure speaks for itself. In that restaurant, everyone watching could see the difference. The biker's noise lost power the moment it was met with the boy's quiet defiance. The contrast between them was so clear that it turned the entire room against the bikers without the boy even having to lift a hand. What makes this kind of strength even more powerful is that it inspires others. Witnessing someone stand tall in the face of intimidation without resorting to violence or anger reminds people that they too can be strong in similar situations. The boy's calmness wasn't just his shield, it became a mirror that reflected the biker's foolishness. Instead of being remembered as intimidating figures, they became symbols of weakness. Instead of being remembered as a victim, the boy became a symbol of resilience. This is how quiet strength changes narratives. It not only protects the person who carries it, but also influences those who witness it. The lesson here is that true strength is not about overpowering others, but about mastering oneself. Anyone can shout, threaten, or act tough, but it takes courage to stay calm when insulted, to stay composed when mocked, and to stay confident when underestimated. The kid's response to the bikers proved that strength rooted in character is greater than any display of arrogance. His calmness was not silence born of fear, but silence born of control. His lack of aggression was not weakness, but the ultimate show of power. The bikers left that restaurant not just humiliated, but also taught that strength is not what they thought it was. They believed dominance came from intimidation, but they walked away realizing that the quiet boy they mocked had shown them what true power looks like. His strength was invisible at first glance, but once revealed, it was undeniable. That is the kind of strength that cannot be broken. Bullies often act as though they are powerful, but the truth is that their behavior exposes deep insecurity and weakness. In the story of the racist bikers, their attempt to intimidate a young kid in the restaurant reveals far more about their own flaws than it does about him. Bullies thrive on control, and that control usually comes from creating fear in others. When they laugh at someone, mock them, or try to scare them, they believe they are proving superiority. But the moment their target refuses to bend, the illusion of power begins to crack. That is exactly what happened when the kid refused to be intimidated. Instead of showing weakness, he revealed the biker's lack of true strength. Bullies expose their own weakness when they need a group to attack someone who is alone. The bikers entered the restaurant in numbers, feeding on each other's energy, relying on the crowd they formed to boost their confidence. A truly strong person doesn't need a group to back them up, nor do they need to prey on someone younger or smaller. By choosing a child as their target, the bikers already showed they lacked courage. They picked on someone they thought could not fight back because deep down they feared someone stronger might expose them. That choice alone reveals that bullies are not brave, they are cowards searching for easy victories. When the boy responded with composure and confidence, their weakness became even clearer. Instead of gaining control of the situation, they lost it. The diners who watched saw the bikers' arrogance transform into desperation as they tried harder to provoke a reaction. But the harder they pushed, the more they looked foolish because their intimidation had no effect. Their reliance on noise and mockery failed, and in that failure, their insecurity was exposed to everyone in the room. Bullies depend on silence from their victims to look powerful, but when silence is paired with calm resistance, it flips the spotlight and forces everyone to see the bully's emptiness. Another way bullies reveal their weakness is through anger. As the kid stayed calm, the bikers most likely grew louder and more frustrated. Anger is often a mask for fear, and the more they shouted, the more it became obvious that they were losing control of themselves. Instead of appearing strong, they showed that they were ruled by emotions they could not manage. In contrast, the kid's calmness showed discipline, making the biker's anger seem like a tantrum rather than authority. This shift in perception is critical because it changes how the audience views both sides, the child as composed and strong, and the bikers as unstable and weak. Bullies also reveal weakness when they underestimate others. The bikers thought the kid would crumble, but instead they ended up humiliated. This underestimation shows that they did not take time to recognize true strength, relying only on surface-level assumptions. They believed the child's age or background determined his worth, and that blindness made them vulnerable. Their arrogance led them to set a stage where their own defeat would be public. Every person in the restaurant became a witness to their downfall, not because the boy attacked them, but because their own actions betrayed them. The greatest exposure of their weakness came when the lesson they received lingered longer than their laughter. The kids' resistance turned into a lasting memory for them, something they would carry with regret. Bullies may act confident in the moment, but being outsmarted or outwitted by someone they underestimated leaves a scar on their pride. That scar is the ultimate sign of weakness, because it shows that their confidence was fragile and easily broken. In the end, the bikers' behavior taught everyone in the restaurant that bullies are not powerful, they are hollow. They rely on fear, on numbers, and on appearances to look strong, but when faced with true courage, they collapse. The kid didn't need to fight them or match their noise. He simply had to remain unshaken. That calmness stripped away their masks and exposed the truth: bullies are weak, for in their weakness is revealed the moment their intimidation fails. Respect is something that cannot be forced, demanded, or extracted through fear. True respect is earned through character, integrity, and the way a person treats others. In the story of the racist bikers and the kid in the restaurant, for this truth becomes very clear. The bikers walked in expecting that their size, numbers, and intimidation would naturally earn them respect, or at least fear disguised as respect. They wanted the child to shrink, to cower, or to show submission. But what they failed to realize is that fear and respect are not the same thing. Fear fades as soon as someone chooses courage over silence, while respect remains because it is built on authenticity and strength. The bikers tried to demand respect through aggression, but all it earned them was discomfort from onlookers and eventually humiliation. Respect that is demanded never lasts because it is not genuine. People might nod their heads to avoid conflict or remain quiet in the moment, but deep down they feel no admiration, only resentment. That is exactly what happened in the restaurant. The bikers assumed they were commanding the room, yet in reality the diners were seeing them as nothing more than bullies. The child, by contrast, commanded silent admiration simply by standing tall and refusing to bend. Without raising his voice, without acting violently, he gained more respect in that room than the bikers ever could. Respect there creates only short-term obedience. A person might do what you say because they are scared, but they will never honor you in their heart. The bikers wanted to humiliate the kid, believing that would give them status. But humiliation is not respect, it is cruelty, and cruelty eventually isolates the one who practices it. Once the kids showed resilience, their entire illusion fell apart. Instead of being admired, they were pitied and eventually ridiculed. The difference is striking. One side tried to force control, while the other side earned respect naturally through dignity. The child's actions prove that real respect grows when someone embodies values others can look up to. Courage, patience, and self-control are qualities people admire, and they create respect that lasts even after the moment has passed. The bikers had none of these qualities. They showed anger, arrogance, and ignorance. The kid, though much younger, showed maturity beyond his years. That contrast taught everyone in the restaurant that age or power does not define respect. Character does. This moment also highlights that respect and fear lead to very different outcomes. Fear breeds division. When people are scared of someone, they look for chances to escape or undermine them. Respect, however, builds unity. People naturally gravitate towards someone they respect, even defending them when needed. In the restaurant, the kid's calmness likely made other customers quietly root for him, perhaps even step in if things escalated further. No one in that room would have stepped in to defend the bikers because their actions had already stripped them of any chance at being respected. Another important element is that respect endures beyond the moment. Long after the bikers left, people in the restaurant would still remember the kid's courage. They might tell the story to others, admiring how someone so young stood up without fear. That respect lingers because it is tied to truth and strength. The bikers, on the other hand, would be remembered for their failure and weakness. Respect earned lives on, fear demanded dies quickly. The biggest mistake the bikers made was believing that intimidation could make people admire them. They misunderstood the difference between fear and respect. Respect cannot be demanded, bought, or forced. It must be given willingly. And once it is earned through honorable actions, it cannot easily be taken away. The child taught them this lesson without even intending to. Real power lies in earning respect, not demanding it. Humility often arrives in life through unexpected encounters, and for the racist bikers in the restaurant, this lesson came from the most unlikely source, a young boy they thought they could easily belittle. Their arrogance led them to underestimate him, believing that their rough appearance and loud behavior automatically placed them in a position of superiority. What they did not anticipate was that this child, with his quiet strength and unshakable courage, would turn the tables and force them to confront their own ignorance. The moment shifted from what they thought would be an easy display of intimidation to a humbling experience that exposed their flaws. Humility is powerful because it strips away illusions of grandeur and reveals the truth about who we really are. The bikers walked into the restaurant convinced that they commanded respect. They imagined that their presence would dominate the room, but when the boy refused to be shaken, it became clear that respect cannot be demanded by force. The silence of the restaurant, the gazes of the people watching, and the steady confidence of the child all worked together to make the bikers realize that their behavior had not earned them admiration, but ridicule. Being confronted in such a public way left them with no choice but to face their own weakness, and that realization was the first step toward humility. This encounter also shows that life has a way of teaching lessons through the most surprising messengers. The bikers would never have expected a child to challenge them, let alone embarrass them in front of a crowd. Yet sometimes the people we dismiss are the ones who carry the most powerful lessons. The boy's courage forced the bikers to look inward, to see that their racism and arrogance were not marks of strength, but signs of insecurity. Humility grows when we are forced to admit that we were wrong, and in this case, the bikers could not escape that truth. The experience may have also left them questioning their assumptions. Their racism blinded them into believing that the boy was less capable, less intelligent, and less significant simply because of who he was. But when he showed resilience and dignity, it shattered those false beliefs. Humility often begins when our assumptions are proven wrong in undeniable ways. It is uncomfortable, even painful, but it pushes us to reevaluate the way we see others and ourselves. In this case, the bikers had to face the fact that they had judged someone unfairly and that their supposed superiority was nothing more than an illusion. Another important layer to this lesson is that humility teaches growth. The bikers could have walked away angry, clinging to their pride, but deep down, moments like this tend to leave lasting impressions. Being shown up by someone they thought was powerless forces them to reconsider how they act in the future. Humility is not about humiliation for its own sake, but about creating an opportunity for reflection and change. The boys' quiet defiance may have been the spark that led them to realize they needed to treat others with more respect, no matter who they were. What makes humility so transformative is that it equalizes everyone. In that restaurant, the bikers' jackets, tattoos, and loud behavior meant nothing. Their attempts at intimidation failed. What mattered was the truth revealed through the boys' composure. In that moment, everyone saw clearly that strength has nothing to do with appearances or threats, but with inner resilience. The bikers were stripped of the false image they had built for themselves, and all that remained was the raw truth. They were wrong, and they had been humbled by someone they least expected. In the end, the lesson of humility taught to the bikers was not just about their behavior in that moment, but about life as a whole. Arrogance blinds us, racism devalues others, and intimidation isolates us. Humility, however, opens the door to respect, growth, and true strength. The bikers thought they were teaching the kid a lesson, but it turned out the other way around. The boy became the teacher, and the bikers were forced to become the students. That is the beauty of humility. It often arrives uninvited, but it always leaves a lasting mark.